There are 58 cars that will be extinct on UK roads by 2030, some as early as next year, and honestly, some of them I'm pretty sure won't be missed. But there are others that I think it will be a tragedy if we no longer see them on the roads or at our local car meets. I'm going to run through not all of them, but certainly the cars that are nearest and dearest to my heart that I hope can be saved, and one or two that I don't think any of us will mind when the last one is scrapped. In a recent analysis of vehicle data, insurance company Temp Cover identified a list of cars that were likely to be extinct in the next few years. And I was looking through this list, and honestly, I was devastated when I saw some of the ones that we could lose from our roads. Now, it's important to know what we mean by extinct, because this data is actually just a set of projections based on the declining numbers of each given make and model. Obviously, there will come a point where there might only be a handful left, but in some cases, it might be that they are literally gone forever. Now, you'll be happy to hear that at least one car on this list is currently being restored by channel co-host James, aka JM on Cars. So at least in that case, we know that there will be one on the roads in the years to come. But before we get to that particular car, let's run through some of the cars that will be extinct by the end of 2027. That's right, by the end of next year, starting with the Rover 25 and the Rover 45. You might argue that these are just Hondas with a Rover badge because they were based on Honda platforms and used K-series engines primarily. And others might not lose any sleep when the last of these Rovers are actually scrapped. But for me personally, I think they're actually quite important cars, and I believe that many of you will agree. Now, the problem with this report is it doesn't specify which generation of any of these cars they're actually referring to. But if what they mean are the cars that were made up to and including 2005, then these are very important cars. Because 2005 was the year that Rover went bust. So the 25 and the 45 represent the last of the Rovers that were ever made. If they cease to exist, that will mean a piece of our British motoring heritage gone forever. Except for maybe a few that I hope some of you might be able to save. Now let's move on to another car, which let's just say I don't think is as important, but it is important to me, and that is the Vauxhall Vectra. In 1995, the Vauxhall Cavalier was replaced by the Vauxhall Vectra, although in other markets the Cavalier had been sold under the name of Opel Vectra, which means our first generation Vectra was technically the second generation Vectra, the Vectra B. These were made between 1995 and 2002, and I'm mentioning this car just because I used to see them on the roads all the time, and when I used to drive past one in my Ford Mondeo 2-litre SI at the time, I used to feel very much superior to them simply because of a Jeremy Clarkson review of my car that was very complimentary about its handling, and let's just say he was far less favourable towards the Vauxhall Vectra. In fact, the Vectra got some pretty bad reviews in its time, but I personally always liked the look of them at least, especially the V6 GSI. Anyway, if you've ever owned a Vauxhall Vectra, let me know in the comments, was it really that bad, or was it a car that was never given the chance it deserved? Let's move on to the next car. In fact, two cars, because they're both Alfa Romeos. The Alfa Romeo 147 and the Alfa Romeo GT. Now, believe it or not, I'm actually a little bit of an Alfa Romeo fan. I used to spend years drooling over Auto Delta modified Alfas, just dreaming about the day that I could possibly buy one. But I was never brave enough, and that's kind of why I was a little sad to see the 147 and the GT on this list. I was also surprised because these cars aren't that old. I mean, they can't all have broken down beyond economic repair and have rusted beyond the point of no return. Oh, they're Alfas. And that's the problem. That was their reputation. But reputations aside, I really hope that people are able to save these cars because I just think they look gorgeous. Next on our list is a set of Peugeots, the 407, 406 and the 206. Now, I wasn't ever that bothered about the 407, but I quite like the look of the 406. And the 206 I actually recently fell in love with when I got an opportunity to drive and review on this channel a Peugeot 206 GTI. What a great car. I had so much fun in that car. It was so capable. It was so much more capable than I expected. That was an early 2002 car, if I remember correctly. And well, I'll leave a link to the video in the description below. You can go and find out what I thought about it. And because I thought it was such a great car, I was really sad to see that it might actually go extinct. However, the 206 that both myself and James tested was in incredibly good condition. So whilst many of the cars will be off the road, I'm confident that that will be on the road for many years to come. Let's move on to the cars that are likely to be extinct in 2028. Starting with the Ford StreetKa, or StreetKa as some people would call it. Now, I'm not mentioning this because I think it's an important car or because I wanted one, just because it was one of those cars that whenever I saw it driving down the road, it just made me smile. Now, of course, there's also the joke about it looking a little bit like a squished 350Z convertible, but because it made me smile, I'm kind of sad that it's not going to be out on the roads making other people smile too. One car that probably didn't make anyone smile was the Chrysler PT Cruiser. Okay, I'm only half joking, but I'm giving it a mention because our good friend JM on Cars has been less than complimentary about this car over the years, and let's just say less than kind towards anyone who would choose to own one. I'm sure it's only a bit of banter on his part, and he doesn't actually mean it. Or does he? Either way, this is a car that to me always looked like a budget hearse, and I can't say that I ever found it particularly attractive. Nonetheless, there are those out there who probably did love them, but for the rest of us, and certainly JM on Cars, I don't think any of us are going to mind when the last one is scrapped. Next on my list of 2028 likely extinctions is the Nissan Almera, not because I liked the car particularly, but because it has one of my favourite car ads of all time. It was a spoof of a show called The Sweeney, and it was just absolutely brilliant. If I wasn't worried about YouTube copyright, I would play it for you now, but look it up. In fact, I'll find one and I'll leave a link to it in the description, because if you ever watch The Sweeney like I did, then you'll enjoy this advert. Moving on, I'm going to mention also the Volkswagen Bora, and that's because our friend Will on this very channel did a Bora front end swap on his Volkswagen Golf estate. And well, I suppose the parts of the Bora that are still on that car will mean that an aspect of the Bora will live on, even if the rest of them are completely gone. The Citroën Saxo also gets an honourable mention from my list of cars that are likely to be extinct in 2028, not because I was particularly passionate about the car, but it just reminds me of a particular era. Young people would take these cars, modify them, put silly exhausts on them, and sometimes drive them in a less than social fashion, but it showed that car enthusiasm was still alive amongst young people, and I'm sure many of those people are grown up, more mature and much more sensible today, and probably continue their passion for cars because they were able to own one of these at a relatively young age, and they were very, very moddable. There were so many aftermarket options available for them, and people just really made them their own. It was like an artistic expression, and it just reminds me of a particular time when modifying cars was just simpler. Another British car that's also in the list of extinctions for 2028 is the Rover 75, and that gets a mention simply because it was made all the way up until 2005, like the other two, and that means it's one of the last Rovers ever made, and for that reason, it's an important part of our heritage. And finally, the cars that I want to mention that are likely to be extinct in 2029. And the first one I'm going to actually mention is the Isuzu Trooper. And I'm only going to mention that because I knew someone when I was much younger who owned one of these, and I just thought it was one of the most crazy, silly looking cars to own in London, but somehow they're just really, really cool. The Jaguar S-Type is also likely to be gone, and again, that gets a mention just because it's a Jaguar, and I think it's so important that we preserve our British motoring heritage as much as we possibly can. So I really, really hope that as many people as possible who currently own an S-Type are managing to keep it going, keep it on the road, and hopefully maybe share it with us at one of our potential future car meets. The next car probably shouldn't get a mention straight after something as beautiful and classic as a Jaguar S-Type, but it does have iconic status, and that is the original smart car, which later became known as the Smart 42. These cars for me were the first small city car that people actually bought. They were everywhere in London. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing about 10 of them in the space of about half an hour. They were, in my view, very cool cars. In fact, when my son and I were in Tokyo, we saw a Brabus version. I don't know if it was a first gen, but it was definitely a Brabus smart car. And when we saw it, we got really excited. And I think any car, even if it is a special edition version, that gets you that excited is a car that is worth saving. So I really, really hope that we see some of those retained, preserved, and out on the roads in the years to come. Other cars that are likely to be extinct in 2029 that I also think are worth a mention include the Audi Allroad, just because it was something different, the Peugeot 106, the Rover 200, just because British, and the Saab 95. And that's because I've just always thought Saabs looked cool. I never really wanted to own one, but every time I saw one, you just knew that's a Saab, and I appreciated that because so many cars for a long time started to look the same, and Saabs never stopped looking like Saabs. The last two cars that I'm going to mention are from a brand that are near and dear to the heart of our good friend James, aka JM on Cars, and that is the MG ZT and the MG ZR. He did a great review of a ZT some years back. I think it had a supercharger, it was a black one. Really, really nice car. But he is currently restoring an MG ZR. The MG ZR is a very, very cool car. So at least we know that somebody is actually restoring one. And when these cars are all but extinct by 2030, there will be at least one of them on the roads. And James does plan on taking it out to meets, out to car shows, so people will be able to see it. But that is all of the cars that I personally want to mention. I'm going to leave a link to the original report below in the description, so if you're interested in seeing what else is on the list to see if there's something that you liked, go and have a look and let us know in the comments which ones you will most miss. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, and please do check out some of our other videos, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye.